While I lay helpless in a hospital bed after a brutal fall, my jealous sister barged in, demanding I sign over my $500,000 luxury apartment. I refused, so she attacked me. But when my 8-year-old son tried to protect me, what she did to him shattered me and sparked a storm she never saw coming. My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 38 years old, a graphic designer living in downtown Chicago. I've always been someone who tried to do the right thing. I worked hard, stayed kind, and helped the people I loved, sometimes more than I should have. I live with my husband, Jason, and our son, Eli. He's 8, and he's my whole world. We live in a high-rise apartment that I worked years to make feel like home. At one point, I thought life was pretty close to perfect. Jason, 40, works as a software engineer. He travels a lot for his job, but we've always found ways to stay connected. And Eli, my sweet boy, is full of energy and questions and imagination. I loved our little routines, the pancakes we made on Saturdays, the bedtime stories, the hugs before school. But, of course, nothing stays perfect forever. It all started to change when my younger sister, Kayla, moved in with us. She's 32, and growing up, we were close. We shared a room, shared secrets, shared dreams. But something in her shifted over the years. She became bitter. Maybe it was life wearing her down, maybe it was jealousy, or maybe she just couldn't stand to see someone else doing well when she wasn't. Kayla had just lost her job, again, and she asked if she could stay with us for a few weeks until she figured things out. I said yes, without thinking. That's what family does, right? We help each other. I didn't realize I was inviting a storm into my home. From the beginning, it was clear she had no respect for boundaries. She criticized the way I parented Eli. She said I babied him too much or gave him too many choices. She mocked my job, calling it just drawing on a screen. And she always made little comments about how I was lucky to marry someone like Jason, as if I didn't deserve the life I had. Still, I held my tongue. I reminded myself she was going through a rough patch. I thought if I stayed patient, she'd get back on her feet and move out. But she didn't. She stayed, and her attitude got worse. Then came the inheritance. My uncle passed away unexpectedly. He was a quiet man, didn't have any children of his own, but he always treated me kindly. He left me 2 luxury apartments in a beautiful complex on the north side of the city. Together, they were worth about $500,000. I was shocked and grateful. It felt like a second chance, like a reward for all the years I had put my dreams on hold.
I didn't want to sell them.
I wanted to rent one and keep the other for Eli's future. When Kayla found out, her tone changed overnight. Suddenly, she was sweet. She complimented my cooking. She offered to watch Eli more often. She even said she admired how I managed the household. It was so fake, it made my skin crawl. And sure enough, one evening, she brought it up. "Rach," she said, sitting on the couch next to me, "have you thought about what you're going to do with those apartments?" I didn't answer right away. I could already feel where this was going. "I'm going to manage them myself," I said finally. "I've already talked to a realtor about renting one out." She smiled, tight and cold. "That's a lot of responsibility. You've got enough on your plate. I could help you manage them, even handle the paperwork. Maybe even move into one." I shook my head. "They're for Eli. I want him to have something solid when he grows up. Something that's his." She didn't say anything, but I could see the shift in her face. The smile dropped. The mask cracked. And I knew I had just made an enemy out of my own sister. Jason had been home that week, but the next morning he told me he was flying out to Seattle for a 3-week project. It was a big deal for him, good money, an important client. I smiled, wished him well, and told him we'd be fine. Inside, I was nervous. With Jason gone, it would just be me, Eli, and Kayla. And Kayla had already started giving me the silent treatment, her favorite form of punishment.
I tried not to let it get to me.
I had my son, my work, and the apartments to focus on. But then the worst happened. A week after Jason left, I went to pick up Eli from school. It had been raining, and the steps near the back entrance were slick. I didn't notice the crack in the concrete. My heel caught, my foot slipped, and I went down hard. The pain hit instantly, sharp, blinding. I couldn't move. A teacher ran over, shouting for help. My vision blurred. I remember Eli running toward me, his face terrified, and then everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed. Both of my legs were fractured. I had a sprain in my lower spine and deep bruising along my ribs. The doctors said I'd need to stay for at least 2 weeks, maybe longer. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit up properly. I felt trapped, helpless, and scared, not just because of the injury, but because I knew who would be waiting for me. And I was right. The next day, the door creaked open. I expected a nurse. Instead, it was Kayla. She didn't bring flowers. She didn't ask how I was feeling. What she did bring was a large manila envelope. "Hey," she said, too casually. "I need you to sign something." She dropped the envelope on my lap. "What is it?" I asked, already feeling the knot in my stomach tighten. "Just transfer documents," she said. "For the apartment. You're in no shape to deal with this stuff. You might as well let me take over." I stared at her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "No," I said, my voice shaking. "I'm not signing anything." She crossed her arms. "You're making a mistake, Rachel. A big one." I didn't answer. I just pressed the nurse call button and stared at the wall, praying for someone to walk through that door. I wish I could say Kayla left after that. I wish I could say she realized how wrong she was, how inappropriate it was to bring legal documents to a hospital bed. But she didn't. She stood there, glaring at me like I was the one betraying her. Like I had done something unforgivable. When the nurse finally came in, Kayla smiled, said she'd come back later, and walked out like nothing had happened. The moment the door closed behind her, I broke down. Not just because of the pain in my body, but because of the pain in my heart. This was my sister. Someone I had trusted, someone I had helped so many times, now trying to take away the one thing I had to offer my son, a future. And she was doing it without guilt, without shame, as if she believed she had every right to it. The following days were heavy. I could barely move, and every time I thought about Kayla's face, that cold smirk when I refused to sign, I felt sick. I didn't tell Jason right away. He was working long hours, and I didn't want to distract him or worry him until I had more information. A part of me was still hoping this would all blow over. But I should have known better. Kayla kept coming back. Sometimes she brought snacks for Eli or acted like she cared about how I was healing. But it was always followed by another push, another question. "Have you thought about the documents?" "Rach, you don't want to drag this out, do you? You need someone strong to take over now. You can't even get to the bathroom without help." I refused to answer most of the time. But inside, I was panicking. I felt stuck in that bed, literally and emotionally. She had all the freedom to move, to manipulate, to plot, and I had nothing. Just fear and pain and Eli. He was the only thing that kept me sane. My sweet boy visited me every evening after school, bringing his coloring books and little stories from his day. He didn't know the full truth, but he could sense something was off. Kids always do. "Mom, why is Aunt Kayla so angry all the time?" he asked one day. I smiled weakly. "She's just confused, honey. Some people don't know how to show love the right way." He frowned. "I don't like it when she talks to you like that. It's not fair." I held his hand and nodded. "I know, but you don't have to worry. I'm okay." That was a lie. I wasn't okay. And things were about to get worse. It was 5 days after the accident. I was alone in the room, reading messages from Jason, when Kayla came in again. She didn't knock. She looked impatient, like she was already in the middle of a fight I hadn't started. "I'm done being polite," she snapped, walking over to the bed. "You're going to sign those papers." I didn't respond. I put my phone down and stared at her. She leaned in closer, her voice low and sharp. "You're weak, Rachel. You're laying here in this bed, useless. You can't even stand up for yourself, let alone raise a kid or manage property. You're wasting those apartments and you know it." I said no. I whispered. My voice wasn't strong, but it was firm. She exploded. In one swift movement, she grabbed the documents from her bag and slammed them down on my lap. "Sign them." I'm not playing games anymore. I reached for the nurse call button, but she slapped my hand away. I'm your sister, Rachel. I've been patient long enough. You've never deserved the things you have, and you know it. Now give me what's mine. The next few seconds were a blur. She reached down and grabbed my injured leg, my broken leg, and shoved it hard. I screamed so loudly, I barely recognized my own voice. The pain shot through me like fire. I couldn't breathe. I could see stars. And then I heard Eli. Stop. I turned my head, barely able to focus, and there he was, my brave, beautiful boy, standing at the door with a juice box in one hand and terror in his eyes. He dropped the box and ran straight to me. Leave her alone. Don't hurt my mom, he shouted. Kayla backed away a little, panic flashing across her face. She tried to cover it with a fake smile, but it was too late. Eli was already pressing the nurse call button over and over again with his tiny fingers, yelling for help. The door burst open seconds later. A nurse and 2 security guards rushed in. One of them stepped between Kayla and the bed immediately, arms outstretched. What's going on here? The nurse asked, eyes wide as she looked at my face, then at the papers on the bed. She attacked me? I gasped, tears streaming down my cheeks. She hurt my leg. She's lying. Kayla shouted, trying to sound innocent. It was just a misunderstanding. But the bruises on my leg, the trembling in Eli's voice, and the panic in the room told a different story. The security guards didn't waste time. One of them took Kayla by the arm while the other called the hospital administrator. You can't do this, she yelled as they led her toward the door. I'm her family. You assaulted a patient in a hospital bed, one of the guards said flatly. We've already called the police. Kayla turned to me one last time, her face twisted in rage. You'll regret this, Rachel. You think Jason's going to believe you? You think you can take everything and shut me out? I didn't say a word. I just looked at Eli, who had his arms wrapped tightly around my good side, crying into my shoulder. The door closed behind them and the room finally fell silent. I felt like I could breathe again. Not fully, not yet. But for the first time since the fall, I didn't feel completely powerless. I held my son as close as I could and whispered in his ear, It's over now, baby. She can't hurt us anymore. But deep down, I knew this wasn't truly over. It was just beginning. After Kayla was taken away by the hospital security, everything felt like a fog. Nurses checked my vitals, adjusted my pain medication, and gently cleaned up the mess Kayla had left behind. Papers scattered, my pillow tossed to the side, my leg throbbing worse than before. Eli sat silently beside me, holding my hand so tight I thought he'd never let go. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't want him to. I knew I had to call Jason. I had tried to protect him from all this, tried not to pull him away from his project. But now he needed to know. I reached for my phone with trembling fingers and called him. It was late in Seattle, and his voice was sleepy when he picked up. Rachel? Everything okay? I took a breath, but it came out shaky.
No, Jason.
You need to come home. It's Kayla. There was a long pause. I could hear him sitting up, the rustling of sheets, the silence stretching between us. What did she do? She tried to force me to sign over the apartment. When I said no, she lost it. She hit me, Jason. She hurt my leg. Eli saw everything. He called for help. She's been arrested. For a moment, he didn't speak. Then I heard the change in his voice. No more sleep, no more confusion. Just anger. I'm booking the first flight back, he said. You're not alone in this anymore. He arrived the next morning, eyes dark with worry and exhaustion. When he walked into the hospital room and saw me in bed, bruised and hooked up to machines, something inside him broke. He sat beside me, reached for my hand, and whispered, I should have never left you with her. I'm so sorry. I just shook my head. She was going to do this no matter what. At least now you know. And he did. I could see it in the way his jaw clenched every time I mentioned her name. The way he stayed close to Eli, watching over him like a shield. The way he listened, really listened when I told him everything Kayla had done over the last few weeks. It wasn't long before the legal process began. Jason contacted a lawyer, a sharp and fearless woman named Lisa Grant. She came to the hospital the day after Kayla's arrest, holding a thick folder under her arm and a no-nonsense expression on her face. "Rachel," she said, "I've reviewed the reports, the witness statements, and the hospital footage. You have a strong case. This isn't just family drama. This is assault, coercion, and attempted fraud. If you're ready, we're going to fight this." I nodded, more confident than I had felt in weeks. "I want to press full charges. I'm not backing down." Lisa smiled. "Good. Neither am I." Over the next several days, things moved quickly. Kayla was charged formally with aggravated assault, attempted coercion, and property fraud. Her lawyer tried to argue that she was emotionally overwhelmed, that she had no intention of hurting me, that she was simply acting out of concern. But we had too much evidence. The hospital security cameras had caught her grabbing my leg. The nurses and guards gave clear testimony about what they witnessed. And most powerful of all, Eli's statement. Lisa handled it gently, making sure he never had to testify in person, but his words, his bravery, were recorded and read in court. The hearing was painful. Seeing Kayla sitting there in her formal clothes, pretending to be the victim, still trying to twist everything to make herself look innocent, it brought back every sick feeling I had felt in that hospital bed. But this time, I wasn't alone. Jason sat beside me every day. Lisa stood tall, confident, and ready to challenge every lie Kayla told. When I was called to the stand, I told my story simply and honestly. I didn't cry. I didn't dramatize. I just told the truth. I spoke about how Kayla had changed, how she manipulated me, how she saw my inheritance as something she was entitled to. I described how it felt to be threatened while I was too weak to move, and the terror I felt seeing her lay hands on me in front of my child. When Jason spoke, his voice was steady, but filled with pain. I trusted Kayla. We both did. But she betrayed that trust. She didn't just hurt my wife, she traumatized our son. This wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated decision. The judge listened carefully, asking a few questions, reviewing the footage and documents. Kayla's lawyer pushed back with everything he had, but none of it held up. The truth was too clear. After several tense days, the judge delivered the verdict. Kayla was found guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 6 years in prison and ordered to pay $35,000 in damages for medical bills and emotional distress. She didn't cry. She didn't even apologize. As the bailiffs took her by the arm, she turned to me one last time. "You think you've won," she said. "You'll regret this." But I didn't feel fear. I didn't feel regret. I felt calm. "No, Kayla," I said. "You're the one who lost everything." And with that, she was taken away. It was over. The day after the trial, I woke up feeling lighter than I had in a long time. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't. My legs still ached, and I had weeks of physical therapy ahead of me. But something else had lifted. That pressure on my chest, that constant feeling of walking on eggshells, it was gone. Kayla was no longer hovering over my life like a storm cloud. She couldn't touch me, not anymore. Jason stayed close, even after the court case was over. He took a break from work and made sure I had everything I needed, whether it was fresh clothes, warm meals, or just a quiet moment with Eli. I could see it in his eyes. He still felt guilty for not seeing it sooner, for leaving me alone with her. But I kept reminding him, what matters is that you stood with me when it counted. That's what saved us. We spent the next few weeks preparing to leave the apartment we had shared with Kayla. It had once felt like a safe place, but now, every corner reminded me of her twisted words, her judgment, her greed. I didn't want Eli growing up in a space where so much pain had happened. So we packed up, piece by piece, and moved into one of the 2 luxury apartments my uncle had left me, the one I had always planned to keep for our future. The first time we stepped inside, it felt like stepping into a different life. The place was bright, spacious, quiet. The windows looked out over the lake, and the sound of the city felt distant, not suffocating. It was peaceful. It was ours. Eli ran through the rooms, laughing, checking every corner like it was an adventure. Mom, this place is huge, he shouted, his voice echoing. Can I pick my own room? Of course, I said, smiling as I watched him spin in the hallway. This is your home now, too. We painted his room together. Jason helped set up the new furniture. I started hanging up art I had drawn over the years but never had space to display. It was like we were writing a new chapter, clean and fresh and free from everything that had come before. One night, as we sat on the couch in the living room, with Eli asleep in his new room and soft music playing in the background, Jason took my hand. I should have listened sooner, he said quietly. I should have seen what she was doing to you. I looked at him, really looked.
He meant it.
The guilt in his voice was real, but so was the love. You believe me now, I said softly. He nodded. I always believed you. I just didn't want to believe she was capable of doing this. But now I know better. I won't ever let anyone hurt you again. I leaned into him and whispered, I don't need you to protect me from now on. I just need you to stand with me. He smiled and pulled me close. Always. The day I stood on my own 2 feet again, shaky, slow, but standing, I cried. Not just because I had healed enough to walk, but because I had made it through. I had survived the betrayal of someone I once trusted, and I hadn't let her break me. Kayla tried to steal from me, tried to silence me, tried to destroy what little peace I had. But in the end, she lost everything. She had no idea that the woman she thought was weak was someone capable of standing up, even with broken bones, and saying, no more. Now, each morning when I open the windows and feel the breeze come in, I remember how far we've come. Eli's laughter in the kitchen, Jason's calm voice beside me, the quiet strength in the walls of this new home. They're reminders that I didn't give in, that I didn't lose, that I reclaimed what was mine. My story isn't just about pain or betrayal. It's about finding courage in the darkest moments. It's about choosing justice, even when it's scary. And it's about knowing your worth, especially when others try to make you forget it. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing for sure. I'll never let anyone take my power away again.